Baby dragon burned the same tree for days. What the human farmer found. The valley had been quiet for decades. Oren Kell, a weathered farmer with lines etched deep from sun and labor, liked it that way. His land spread out in wide golden fields of grain, bordered by the silent, ancient pines of the Karthwood. Seasons passed with only the steady rhythm of plowing, planting, and harvest. The most exciting events were storms rolling in from the north, or the occasional deer straying too close to his fences. So when smoke began curling above the tree-line one morning, Oren frowned. Not the thick gray haze of wildfire, but thin spirals that rose in the same place each dawn for 3 days straight, always from the same tree. By the 4th day, Oren's curiosity outweighed his farmer's instinct to stay out of trouble. He strapped on his boots, grabbed the old post rifle he kept more for wool than war, and hiked toward the woods. What he found was not what he expected. The tree in question was an ancient cedar, its bark blackened and smoldering at its base. The air reeked of char, but oddly the flames never spread beyond the trunk. Something had been deliberately searing it. As Oren rounded the clearing, he heard a sound like a kettle whistling, high-pitched, uneven. And then he saw it. A small creature, no taller than his knee, crouched at the base of the tree. Its scales gleamed like molten copper. Its wings curled awkwardly against his body, as if too heavy for it to use. Each time it drew in a shuddering breath, a thin jet of flame spilled from its mouth onto the bark. The cedar hissed and smoked, but did not collapse. Oren froze. His heart hammered. Dragons were not supposed to exist. At least, not anymore. Not since the Purge Wars of a century ago, when humanity and the colonies hunted them to extinction after they torched entire settlements. They were legends, warnings told to children about fire and greed. Yet here on his land, a baby dragon burned the same tree again and again. The farmer and the fireling. The little dragon noticed him. Its golden eyes flared wide, and for a moment Oren thought it would attack. But instead, it squeaked, a trembling sound, almost like a cry. Its flame sputtered out. Oren, post rifle raised, hesitated. The farmer in him saw only the danger. Dragons meant fire. Fire meant ruin. But the man in him, who had buried his wife years ago with no children to carry on his name, saw something else. The creature was thin, ribs visible beneath its scaled hide. It looked lost. Slowly, Oren lowered his weapon. "What in blazes are you doing here, little one?" he muttered. The dragon blinked. Then it turned back to the tree, coughing a spark onto the bark. For reasons he couldn't explain, Oren stayed. He watched as the creature tried again and again, its fire weak and erratic. When exhaustion finally overcame it, the dragon slumped against a scorched trunk, curling its tail around itself like a child with a blanket. Oren stood in silence for a long time, then sighed. "Well, looks like I've got myself a problem." He carried the dragon home. Fire in the barn. The first days were chaos. The dragon, whom Oren, grudgingly, started calling Ember, was restless and destructive. It singed hay bales, startled the horses, and melted a metal pail simply by sneezing. Oren nearly regretted his decision to bring it back. But Ember was also affectionate. It followed him like a lamb, its wings dragging behind, and whimpered when he left the barn. At night, Oren found it curled up against a heater, tiny embers glowing between its scales. Feeding it was another matter. The creature refused grain or vegetables, and raw meat vanished in seconds. Oren had to trade with the hunters in the village for extra cuts. When the butcher asked why, Oren shrugged and muttered something about a stray predator cub. Days turned into weeks. Ember grew stronger. Its wings unfurled wider, its fire steadier. Yet every few days, it insisted on returning to the cedar tree. Oren followed each time, rifle slung over his shoulder, watching as the dragon seared the same spot on the trunk with almost religious focus. "Why this tree?" he muttered more than once. "What are you looking for?" Ember never answered. But Oren noticed something strange. Despite all the scorching, the cedar never fell. Its bark regrew overnight, as if resisting the dragon's flame. And Oren began to wonder if perhaps Ember knew something he did not. Whispers of the past. Rumors spread quickly in small towns. Hunters whispered about odd scorch marks in the forest. A shepherd swore he heard wings at night. The village council muttered about calling the wardens, the interstellar peacekeepers who had finished the Purge Wars. One evening, Oren overheard a conversation in the tavern. "They say dragons ain't natural beasts." An old miner grumbled over ale. They were made bioengineered weapons from the old wars. That's why they burn so hot. Why they hate humans. "Then why's one here now?" someone asked. "Doesn't matter. If it's real, the wardens will come. They always do." Oren clenched his jaw and left without finishing his drink. He returned home to find Ember waiting at the barn door, eyes glowing softly in the dusk. The thought of handing the creature over to be dissected or destroyed made something in his chest twist. He realized, with startling clarity, that he cared for it. Secrets in the tree. The breakthrough came one stormy night. Thunder shook the valley, and Ember grew agitated, pacing in the barn. It tugged at Orin's sleeve with its teeth, then bolted into the rain. Orin cursed, grabbed his rifle, and followed. The dragon led him straight to the cedar tree. Lightning illuminated the clearing as Ember spat a furious jet of fire at the bark. This time, something gave way. The trunk split, revealing a hollow chamber within. Inside was not wood, but metal. Orin stumbled forward, rain plastering his hair to his face. He brushed his hand over the smooth surface. It wasn't just metal. It was alloy, etched with markings in an old war script. A hidden pod. The door groaned as Ember clawed at it. With a hiss of hydraulics, it slid open, revealing a dark compartment. Inside lay a capsule no larger than a crate, humming faintly with dormant power. Orin's breath caught. He recognized the design. During his youth, before he turned to farming, he had served as a scout in the border wars. This was Warden technology, ancient, sealed, and Ember had been trying to free it. The awakening. When Orin pried the capsule open, a projection flickered to life. A holographic figure appeared. A woman in Warden armor, her face lined with exhaustion. "If you are seeing this," she said, "then the last sanctuary has been breached. This dragonling is not a weapon, but a key. It carries encoded memories, coordinates to where the survivors fled. Protect it or all is lost." The hologram fizzled and died. Orin stood in stunned silence. Ember pressed against his leg, eyes wide. Not a weapon. A key. The realization hit him hard. The Purge Wars had not exterminated dragons. They had hidden them, buried their young in stasis pods, encoded with secrets, waiting for someone to uncover them. And somehow, one had awakened on his farm. The hunters come. News traveled faster than Orin hoped. Within days, ships appeared in the sky, sleek Warden vessels, descending like hawks. The villagers gathered in fear as armored enforcers swept through, scanning fields and barns. Orin hid Ember in the root cellar, but he knew it was only a matter of time. The dragon whimpered in the dark, pressing its snout against his palm. "Quiet now," Orin whispered. "I won't let them take you." But when the wardens knocked on his door, their commander, an austere woman with cold gray eyes, spoke with finality. "We have intelligence of a rogue specimen. Harboring such a creature is treason. If you know anything, farmer, speak now." Orin's throat tightened. He could lie. He could hand Ember over and return to his quiet, ordinary life. Instead, he met the commander's gaze and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." That night, he prepared to run. Flight through the valley. With Ember bundled in a cart beneath hay, Orin set out under cover darkness. But wardens were thorough. Searchlights swept the hills. Drones whirred overhead. At the river crossing, they were ambushed. Pulsefire lit the night, searing past Orin's shoulder. He dove for cover, heart hammering, as Ember shrieked and burst from the cart. Flame roared across the bridge, scattering soldiers. Orin fired his rifle, wild, desperate shots, while Ember shielded him with its growing wings. The little dragon fought fiercely, as if it knew their lives depended on it. They barely escaped, vanishing into the mountains. The journey beyond. For weeks, Orin and Ember traveled across rugged terrain, guided by fragments of maps hidden in the capsule. Each night, Ember grew stronger, its wings carrying it short distances, its fire more controlled. Orin found himself speaking to it, as though it were human. He told stories of his late wife, of seasons on the farm, of the wars he thought he'd left behind. The dragon listened, eyes glowing with quiet understanding. At last, they reached a cavern marked on the hologram's map. Inside lay a vast chamber, filled with dormant pods. Hundreds of them, each holding a slumbering dragonling. Ember stepped forward, flames flickering gently. The pods stirred, humming with energy. One by one, they began to awaken. Orin realized the truth. Ember had not just led him here. It had chosen him. The ending. The wardens arrived soon after, their ships blotting out the sky. But when they descended, they found not one dragon, but hundreds, rising from their pods like living fire. For the first time in a century, the balance of power shifted. Orin stood at the cavern's mouth, Ember perched on his shoulder, wings unfurled. The commander of the wardens shouted demands, but Orin's voice carried over the roar wings. "They are not your weapons," he said. "Not your prisoners. They are free." The dragons answered with flame that lit the mountainside, forcing the wardens to retreat. In the quiet that followed, Orin knelt beside Ember. The little dragon nuzzled him, warmth seeping through his weary bones. For the first time in years, Orin felt something bloom in his chest that farming alone had never given him: hope. And so the farmer who once tended only grain became the keeper of dragons, guardian of a new future, born from fire, hidden in the heart of an old cedar tree.